Hello, I'm Jack, and in this video I'm going to give you a little showcase of my Wwise implementation in Unity's 3D game kit, The Explorer. My first step was to play the game with the original audio muted, whilst creating a list of sounds I'd expect to hear when playing. I then set out to create the sounds. I wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone, so most of the assets created for this project are designed from scratch. At my disposal, I had a Zoom F3, a 416, and two basic hookahs. Working in Reaper, I used Serum for most of the synthesis, and Isotope Ozone and RX for a bulk of the cleanup and processing. Let's start with the protagonist Ellen. I designed a bunch of sounds for her, including footsteps, Foley, weapon sounds, and voices with the help of my friend Fliss. For the Foley sounds, I screen recorded each animation event and found a jacket from my wardrobe that most closely resembled her clothing material. Then, I looped each animation clip, recording multiple variations. I designed the staff sounds using 4 layers. I thoroughly enjoyed designing the ambient sounds for the swamp and crystal chamber environments. For the swamp ambience, I designed a bunch of insect and bird sounds. And for the crystal chamber, I designed a tonal drone, drips, and abstract fungus sounds. I also designed sounds for a bunch of the interactable objects, including boxes, health crates, crystals, and doors. I voiced the Chomper and Grenadier enemies myself, using plugins like Nmorph and Dehumanizer to create otherworldly effects. I also produced their other sounds. For the implementation, I used Wwise plugins and wrote C# scripts to create a more dynamic and interactive experience. I added a frequency bracketed ducking system, which ducks lower priority sounds in favour of higher ones, like Ellen or Chompers. Lower priority sounds are routed to an environment bus, and higher priority sounds go to a critical bus. The critical bus sends split frequency bands as sidechain signals to the environment bus, triggering gain reduction in the matching frequency band. Wwise has quite a few plugins for generative audio that I utilise sparingly. The box breaking sound uses a soundseed grain source to add more variation to the debris tail, and the Grenadier's grenade bounce uses impactor, with parameters driven by a velocity RTPC. I integrated the Reflect plugin into the project, which renders physically accurate early reflections. I imported decimated geometry and configured appropriate acoustic textures for each surface, optimising voice usage with emitter buses. This adds an intense atmosphere and vastness to the alien planet. I added a dynamic birdsong system that changes based on Ellen's activity. When she's inside the trigger and not idle, birds switch to an alert state with sparse chirpy calls. If she's idle or outside the trigger, they gradually shift to a calm state with more frequent musical calls. I added rustling sounds to the vines, which modulate in sync with the animations by replicating the shader logic in a C# script. The resulting data drives a global wind RTPC, modulating both the vine sounds and soundseed air parameters for the base wind ambience. The swamp ground meshes use vertex colours to distribute different textures, so I added a check in Ellen's footstep trace to read the current vertex colour and drive an RTPC that blends mud, moss, puddle and pebble footstep sounds. This increases audio-visual congruence and adds more variation to footsteps across the map, even though it's technically one material. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to watch a full-length deep dive of the implementation, or a full-length gameplay video, you can find the links on the end screen or in the description. Have a nice day!